Hello, I'm Dennis Neal. We've been discussing some pretty interesting topics today on the limits of government power, if there's any such thing as that in these days of an overreaching government, and the VA scandal and some of the global warming stuff. And in all of this, there seems to be a common theme. Often, we hear that our president, the CEO of our government, had no idea that all that bad stuff was going on. We want to talk to our next guest about that. Jonathan Tobin joins us, and he's actually written about this, and he seems a little piqued by the entire process by which the president gets notice. Jonathan, welcome.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us basically your premise and what bothers you.
Well, I think the problem, I can't be the only American who noticed that the president and his White House press spokesman, Jay Carney, have trotted out the same excuse multiple times. We heard this before with the IRS scandal, where he said, well, he just read about it in the newspapers. We've seen this theme repeated constantly. And then again, in the last couple of weeks, we heard that the president only heard about the problems at the VA because he watched a report about it on CNN. Well, we know that's not true because the House Veterans Affairs Committee wrote to him a year earlier, warning him of the problems. And after all, this is the guy who keeps reminding us that he campaigned on trying to help veterans when he first ran for president in 2008. But since then, he's acted as if the only thing he had to do about that was talk. And he just let it go. Eric Shinseki has been there the last 5.5 years, and the situation just hasn't gotten better. It just gets worse. So what we have here is an absentee president.
Yes, you know what, and an ineffectual or neglectful manager in some ways. You know, I was until recently an anchor on the Fox Business Network, and I had a little segment I did called "What's Bugging Me," and we did an entire segment on this know-nothing president and how often he ends up saying, I didn't find out about this until media reports. Yet, look at this soundbite we've arranged and set up here. This is Megyn Kelly on Fox News talking about just how much government knew and when it knew it way before, so that the president's excuse this time is especially hollow. Give a listen to this, Jonathan.
Flash forward to May of 2012. The Senate holds a hearing. The Senate holds a hearing on the problematic long, ridiculously long waits for care at VA facilities. Listen to this witness.
Like many VA medical centers, the overriding objective at our facility, from top management on down, was to meet our numbers, meaning to meet our performance. The goal was to see as many veterans as possible, but not necessarily to provide them the treatment they needed.
Democratic Senator Patty Murray followed up that hearing with a bill, specifically calling for policy changes to address how VA employees were playing games with the wait lists. It passed. President Obama signed it. Seemingly nothing happened.
Pretty devastating, Jonathan. What do you say? May 2012, they knew about this problem.
Well, they did. They were reminded of it a year later when the House committee wrote about it, as I just said. This is no secret. There was no secret at the top levels of the government that they had a huge problem. The president just detached from it, as he detaches from anything other than those few issues that he cares deeply about, like getting his Obamacare passed, not that it be rolled out properly, or issues like, well, that he wants to appease Iran, that he cares about, that he follows up on, that he gets what he wants. But everything else is just slept. He's a terrible administrator. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Well, actually,
corporate change has just evaporated in an atmosphere of incompetence, and that's what, you know. As much as some of us conservatives rail at his ideological bias and his bad ideas, he's just a lousy president. He doesn't know how to run this government that he wants to keep making bigger.
Yeah, Bill Clinton had a big picture view, but then the guy also was obsessed with details. Jimmy Carter, however ineffectual he was as a president, certainly was a detail-oriented guy. President Obama seems to never follow up on anything in detail. Now, let me ask you something. When the president and his handlers end up saying, hey, the first thing the president heard about this IRS scandal, this VA scandal, this Benghazi scandal, was when he read it in media reports, why are they using that as a strength when, to me, shouldn't it be embarrassing that a CEO didn't know what was going wrong inside his operation until he read about it in the media?
I think this is based in his contempt and his staff's contempt, number one, for the media, which is often slavish to him, and his contempt for any media that would actually talk back to him, and his contempt for the American people, for the whole idea of being accountable to the American people. He's not interested in that. He feels he was really anointed, not once, but twice, to be the man who would turn back the oceans. And details just aren't his problem. He just doesn't care. I mean, he really thinks he isn't accountable. And to be fair, so far we haven't done a very good job at making him accountable.
Well, and usually that happens, because of a lapdog press.
Yes,
now,
that's
everyone
right.
believes that the mainstream media is pretty liberal, and I've been a reporter for over 30 years, and I've known many, many reporters, and you know what? A lot of us are liberal. I don't know why that is, why it happened that way. I think that when you're growing up, if you're growing up in a home where the father's, an investment banker making $1 million a year, maybe you're less likely to decide you want to become a reporter. When I went to college, I decided to be a reporter at age 10. You practically took a vow of poverty. So if you grew up in a less high-income home, a reporter seems like a fine profession, and no one would look down on that. So I'm not sure why this liberal bias happens, but how much
I don't know
of
about
this
you,
lack
but,
of criticism?
My dad was a working class guy, so I didn't come from wealth, and I didn't
mine
go
too.
to it. But
But how much of the lack of criticism and accountability is because of a liberal press versus it's because a press that's being afraid of being accused of racism if they criticize the president?
That's part of the dynamic with Barack Obama. He is a historic president. No one can take that away from him. No one ever will. He is a special person. I think a lot of conservatives, underestimated the appeal of that status, certainly in 2012. But it's starting to catch up with him because, over time, even the press is getting a little sick of this lack of accountability. And as he sinks further into lame duck status, as I think inevitably is happening, his ineffectuality will become more of an issue as it is now.
Yes, so far he doesn't appear to pay much of a price. I think one interesting question will be, as Hillary Clinton's inevitable run starts to unfold, will her handlers privately, on background, working with reporters, have to find a way to start criticizing the Obama record in terms of its management abilities as a way to separate the Clinton campaign from that and kind of run against it? What do you think?
Well, she's going to have to distance herself from Obama to some extent. There's no question. Anybody, even Bush 1 had to at least distance himself in tone from Ronald Reagan, even though he was really running for a third Reagan administration. She's going to have to do more than that. And it's as good a theory as any that that's going to be the way to do it. That I'll be the efficient liberal hope president. I don't know how easy it will be for her to do because she was part of this administration. And frankly, as we recall from Benghazi and a lot of other issues, she's part of the legacy of incompetence at this administration.
Yes. This idea that maybe some members of the press might be reluctant to criticize too directly the Obama administration unless they be accused of racism. Here in New York, I remember going to dinner with an ad guy, a Madison Avenue guy, who told me point blank, 85% of the racism, of the opposition to Obama is caused purely by racism. But you actually hear some people in Washington play this card sometimes. There was just a story that ran just yesterday, I think it was, where someone doubled up and said, yeah, that opposition to Obamacare in some ways is racist. I just heard someone on CNN say that opposition to emissions caps and pro-green policy could be seen as racist in some ways. It seems like no one in Washington is very reluctant to make the press fear that kind of criticism.
Well, listen, I mean, Jay Rockefeller said that on the floor of the Senate last week. It's disreputable. It's really the last. We talk about Samuel Johnson said patriotism is the last refuge of scoundrels. I really think in our day and age, the last refuge of political scoundrels is to play the racism card. It's really all the Democrats have going for them when they have to defend an incompetent absentee president right now, because on its face, he's just done a lousy job. They wouldn't have tolerated this from George W. Bush, but he's had his own good job brownie moments in these last few months. And again, he's been getting away with it so far. And
I was thinking the figures show the figures show that black unemployment actually went up during the Obama administration, not down. It's down since then. But I wondered what the reaction of the media would have been, indeed, if under George W. Bush's administration black employment had gone up. I don't think the press would have been quite as unnoticing of it.
You know, we can play this game every day with stuff that happens with this administration. Imagine if the Republicans had done this. But, you know, quite frankly, if a Republicans, you know, it's an intellectual game. We can well play it. We have a right to call out this administration. But Republicans have to understand, certainly the Republicans who are running for president right now, are looking for it in 2016, that they are not operating on a level playing field. And they have to get around it. They have to live with it. Because that is not going to change in the next couple of years or even in the foreseeable future with most of the mainstream media. Certainly this president is going to get away with stuff that nobody else could get away with.
Yeah. Now, I think certainly that President Obama and his administration can be criticized for not doing more to reach out and compromise, but can conservatives and Republicans also bear the same criticism for themselves not doing enough to compromise with President Obama and the Democrats?
Well, I think you can always, that's kind of a generic complaint. Yes, you know, why can't we all just get along? You know, certainly there are plenty of Republicans who have made it very clear that they don't want to get along with Barack Obama under any circumstances. And sometimes they're justified because they are standing on principle and not willing to be co-opted into a liberal big government agenda. There are points on which the parties can cooperate. And at times they have cooperated in the last few years. You know, we have managed to keep the government running, you know, but quite frankly, there is a strong difference of opinion between the two parties right now. That's why we have elections, and that's why we have a deadlock government, because the people have decided they're okay with having a liberal president, but they want a check on him in the Congress, and that's it. And so if we have some stasis, that's you know, don't blame Mitch McConnell or John Boehner. Blame James Madison. This is the Constitution that he designed, and for good reason. He didn't want one man to have so much power as Barack Obama and to be able to run roughshod over his opposition. Most Americans.
Madison did love the idea of gridlock.
Yeah,
yes, he did love the idea of gridlock. Well, it's too late for the Obama presidency then, right? There's no changing this president's kind of hands-off management style. I think we're just going to have to wait and see if the next president is more detail-oriented.
Well, more detail-oriented and better able, you know, as they used to say on our report cards when we were little, able to play well with other children. This is not a president who plays well with the other children in Washington. He wants no part. He does not listen.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't. All right,
even
we got to run. Thank you so much, Jonathan Tobin of Commentary. And coming up on the show, we got the Malsburg panel one last time. John Fund is going to join us. I'm Dennis Neal, in for Steve. We'll be right back.